Alright then, so first things first, what is Vue? Well, in a nutshell, it's a very popular JavaScript and TypeScript framework for creating fast and reliable and interactive web apps and single-page applications. Now, it can also be used to create standalone widgets like a search bar or a contact form or any other kind of interactive component that you might find on a website. Now, when we use Vue.js to create websites or widgets, it makes it really easy for us as developers to interact with the user via the DOM, that's the document object model, and also to manage state and data for the application so that we can easily do things like update the UI dependent on user actions like clicking buttons or typing into an input field or something like that. Or we could reflect changes in data such as filtering articles that we show on a blog depending on what a user searches for. In all, Vue is a great framework for creating dynamic, data-driven and interactive websites or user experience. So that's what Vue does for us. Now let's take a look at exactly how it works. So as I said before, Vue can be used for either standalone widgets, which we can drop into a website, or it can be used to create full websites too. Now, in the case of standalone widgets, we'd simply create a Vue component for that widget, for example, a sign-up form, and then that widget could be injected anywhere into our HTML pages. They could even be reused in multiple sections of your website. For example, you could create a widget, which is a sign-up form, and then you could drop that widget into two different places on your website. Now, these widgets would be self-contained, and all of the code and logic required to power that widget would generally be inside of the Vue component itself. And that way, they could then be reused in many different places on your website if needed. Now, the rest of your website might just be static HTML and CSS with multiple pages. It can be built however you wish, but this drop-in sign-up form right here, this would be a widget or component powered by Vue.js. Now, the other more popular way to use Vue is to create full websites with them, which are then made up of several different components and pages. Now, when we use Vue this way, what we're actually doing is creating something called a single page application, or an SPA for short. Now, this is just a term for a website which handles most of the routing between different pages or views in the browser instead of the server. So let's look at exactly how this works. So, for typical websites which don't use Vue or something else similar like React, the following normally happens. First of all, we'd make a request for the website or the web page from the browser by typing in an address in the address bar and hitting enter. That sends a request to a server somewhere. The server handles that request and sends back the HTML page, which we then see in the browser. Now, if we were to click on a link on this page, for example, this one right here, then it would send a fresh request to the server, which would then send back a new HTML page. And the same is true for every link you click on thereafter. So the browser is constantly making requests to the server for every new page, and each request could take some time to do, so the overall experience might be a bit slow. Now, on some pages, we might choose to use Vue to create a standalone widget, like a search bar, which can then be injected into the separate pages. But in this case, Vue is not controlling the flow of the overall website because we're still making requests for every page to the server. Now, when we use Vue to create and control a full website, things work differently. The browser still makes the initial request to get a web page from the server, and that web page is normally a blank, bare bones HTML document. It normally contains virtually no visible content, but it can do sometimes. And with that web page, we also get back our Vue JavaScript bundle. Now, this Vue JavaScript takes full control of the website now in the browser, and it renders the different Vue components that are needed for that page, like a navbar component, an article component, and a sidebar component. And it also takes over all of the linking and routing to other pages on the site too. So if I was to click on a link in this page to /contact, for example, Vue would intercept that request that we make right here, so it doesn't go to the server, and instead Vue handles this in the browser instead. And then what it would do is render a contact component to the browser. Now, it does this really quickly, so it means the website feels much faster and smoother when you're navigating from one page to the next. Now, when we create a website in this way, we call it a single page application because it's only ever a single HTML page sent to us by the server initially, and after that Vue injects whatever components are needed for that page, and it intercepts any link clicking and requests to other pages and just changes the components that we show based on the URL that we navigate to. Now, most of this course is going to focus on creating full Vue websites, single page applications. So we'll learn much more about how they work as we go forward. But to begin with, to get us familiar with the basics of Vue, we'll just be using it to create standalone widgets or components. And that way we can easily jump right into using Vue with very little setup.